Hi, and welcome to episode 151 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, August 14th, 2016. It's a little weird recording this episode today because I know I have not uploaded the last couple ones, so I'm going to just talk and pretend like you've seen the other ones and you know what I'm talking about, because eventually they will all get up and hopefully you'll watch them all. So let me start out with what's on my needles. And I'm going to start out with the project that I forgot to talk about last week. And maybe I kind of did that on purpose. I'm not really sure. I have it in a great big tote bag. It's not totally full, but it's a project that there might be a little like moaning and groaning like going on when you see it. So remember last year when I knit this big blue like jacket kind of coat thing, and I complained and my hands hurt all the time while I was knitting it. It's out of Bartlett yarns. They're Rangeley wool, but I wanted I had bought the yarn originally to do the big Elizabeth Zimmerman coat, that this coat that I had done in the year before. I did that out of the black Icelandic. And I think I might have whined a little bit while I was making that too, because I did that kind of probably faster than I should have. So it's a lot of knitting. So anyway, last year I made that big, I guess it was the round the bend jacket, and complained about my hands hurting. I had to take a couple weeks off from like kind of knitting in December because my wrist was a little strained. And well, I never really wore that. I never actually blocked that sweater jacket, and I kind of just threw it in another room. And I found it when I was looking for my shoe boxes to take to knitting camp, because my shoes come with me in their boxes. And I found the blue round the bend. No, not the round the bend, the hand to hand. And thought I still didn't like it. I knew I was not going to wear it. I'm like, what should I do? It was a lot of yarn. And I really kind of want a big coat where out of that blue yarn. You know where this is going. So I had a couple skeins that hadn't been knit, so I wound those up, and I knew I either wanted to do the round the bend jacket, which is I've done before and I really love wearing that one, or I wanted to do the big Elizabeth Zimmerman coat, which is originally why I bought the yarn. I couldn't decide between the blue and the black, and then the blue was back ordered, so I got the black, and then the blue came in, so I eventually got it. So I started knitting the blue coat. I know I could hear it. So this is as far as I am. Now I am doing this in a much different way than I did it the first time around, both knitting the coat and knitting with this yarn. And I started, I think, August 1st, and I'm doing 2 ridges a day, just 2 ridges a day. So this is where I am. This is, I'm already like past the first skein, and kind of just started the second skein. And I've done my first, if you've done the coat, you know, I've done my first set of decreases was right there where the start of the phony seam is. So this is the Elizabeth Zimmerman coat. I really loved the black one that I have. I really loved wearing it, and so I know I will love wearing this one in this bright blue in the winter. And I have another sweater that I knit a few years ago, the Lupin sweater, Meg's Lupin sweater. And I wore that so much last winter. That is out of the kind of rose-colored Bartlett yarns. And it just, when you block this yarn, it almost gets like a velvety kind of a texture. And so I know I will really love to wear it. So I'm just doing 2 ridges a day, and you know, it's a lot of stitches on the needle, and then I will do kind of the you can leave much longer stretches of without doing the phony seam. When I did it the first time in the double strand of Icelandic unspun, you couldn't, you know, leave like a big stretch to because you drop this stitch down. How you make this is you drop this stitch down, and then kind of you with a crochet hook it back up, because it's reversible. It's on both sides. Let me know if you would like me to do a little demo on how to do it, because I would be happy to. I feel like much, you know, like more enthused about doing all kinds of little demos and stuff now that it's just us. So anyway, with the Icelandic, all the little hairs in it, you kind of had to just go a couple of ridges and then drop down and do it. So it's a longer space of time. So anyway, don't yell. I've been knitting a lot and I do not want to strain my hands. So I'm just doing that little bit at a time. Okay, and so that's kind of on big needles, and it's garter stitch. And in having, you know, setting up these like bunch of projects that I'm currently working on, I try to do kind of a range of things, you know, some stranding, some lace, you know, some garter, maybe a little stockinette, and kind of only one thing on big needles. As you will see, I have 2 things actually on big needles. That's on size 7 needles, 4.5 millimeter, and this next one is on size 8 needles, 5 millimeter. But this one is a real, for me, it's a real product knit. I want the thing. It's not about having the fun of doing it. I need to have this as a finished thing. And what this is the Faroese shawl that I'm knitting on. And so last week when I showed it to you, I think I was about halfway through the lace kind of band. And now I am a couple of inches into the garter, you know, on the back up. So it's still got a ton of stitches on it, but it is decreasing. I have finished the second skein. This takes about 3.5, 3 3/4 skeins of the lace weight Icelandic, the Einband. And I finished the second skein and just started the third one. So my goal on this is to just do kind of 1 skein a week. And so once I have about another ridge or 2 before the first kind of big shaping, because this is a Faroese shawl, so you do a lot of several kind of bands of like shaping in for the shoulder shaping. And so the first one is coming up fairly soon. And once you get past that, I know because I've made this, like, this is my 5th time making this. Once you get past that, everything speeds up and it goes much faster because you've got, you know, less stitches on the needles. So I do have 2 kind of bigger projects on the needles, and this one I am working on every day. Just, I don't have a set number of rows that I'm working on. I just want to like touch it every day so that I can do kind of that 1 skein a week kind of thing. And you'll notice that all of them, practically all my projects, are the same color. I don't know how that really happened. I just kind of did. And this is another, this is a really fun knit that I'm doing, but I also have this as a goal of finishing this before the end of the summer. So this next project is my endearment cardigan. And oh, you're not going to be able to see it at all. The front has a lacy stitch, and then the back is just stockinette. And as you can see, I split for the armholes, so the rows are much shorter now that the sleeves are you know, put on hold. And I'll show you a picture of the finished, or you know, from the pattern. And this is, it's called Endearment. It's by Hanna Makashevska. And so you can see it's a really pretty little cardigan. It has a lot of little features to it, and I'm enjoying knitting it a lot. This yarn is Sun Valley Fibers, her single ply fingering. So it's similar to the Tosh Merino Light. I think it might actually be a tiny bit thinner than the Tosh, at least that I've used. But I'm enjoying knitting it a lot. I am alternating 3 skeins at the same time so that it should be uniform throughout, and you know, really enjoying it. It has this pretty kind of a there's like cables and lace, and I'm really not changing anything except for right here at the underarm. I don't know if it's going to show it in the pattern. It has, you keep doing the alternating. There's like a little section of lace and then a cable, and a section of lace and then a cable, and in the pattern it keeps you alternating all the way to where you start the stockinette. But at the edge, at the front edge here, you can see it on here, on the front edge, you can see there's a cable that goes clear down, you know, on one side and then on the other side. And so I am doing that same thing at the underarm, so that there will just be a cable. I'm not switching on those stitches. I'm not switching back over to the lace. I'm just going to do a cable right, you know, run down there. So that's the only kind of thing I've changed on it, really. And so that is working. I'm trying to work on that a little bit. It's not hard because I'm really enjoying it. And now I sort of have that stitch pattern in my head, so I don't really have to look at the charts or anything. So it's, you know, a lot easier to just pick it up and knit on it when I'm watching a podcast or something like that. So I did start a new project this week for a couple different reasons. One was because I read somebody on my Facebook kind of announced that, or just kind of spread the news that the lace knitting designer Hazel Carter had passed away. I know I've talked about her before. She was she lived in Madison, but she grew up in Scotland, and she was a math professor or teacher down in Madison. And she designed these really, really beautiful lace shawls, kind of, you know, some of them were very intricate, you know, Shetland ring shawl, you know, kind of things. And then some of them were, you know, more like in fingering weight, but they always had sort of interesting construction methods, and they're fun to knit. And so I read that, and I did take a class with her one time at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool, which, you know, was lovely to meet her. And so I thought, but it made me, when I heard the news, it made me want to cast on one of her designs. And kind of that same night, I got an email about a knitting friend who lives in another state, who, you know, had some news that, you know, she's got a challenge ahead of her. And so I wanted to kind of knit something for her. Combining like those two things, I decided to cast on of Violets by the River. Now this is not the one I just cast on. I can knit fast, but not quite that fast. And but I brought this out so that you could see instead of looking at a picture. So this is called Violets by the River. It's a Hazel Carter design, and I probably have shown this on the podcast before, but it has, her shawls often told like a little story, and this was sort of a story about like her adopted state of Wisconsin, because it has the violets, which, is the state flower. So those look like the little violets. And then the rivers, which, Mississippi River or the Fox River or the Wisconsin River. And so this is sort of a modified sort of, old shale kind of a pattern. And then across the top, this has been worn a lot. But there are these little, like a little honeybee pattern. And this shawl was made out of 100% silk. It came as a kit that Blackberry Ridge sells. They don't, it's silk, so it's not from their mill, but I think maybe it came from Treenway, but they kind of sold the pattern and the yarn as a kit. So that's what this one is. And I thought that her designs were just kind of sold through Blackberry Ridge, but I did look up on Ravelry, and like this one is on Ravelry. You can get it as a download, and she has a couple patterns in the Gathering of Lace book also, but I wanted to bring this out to show you because I am doing kind of one change. I'm not sure how well it will show up. So the one I cast on this week is out of some handspun, and it just looks, it's that same color. But I thought it would be really, work for Violets by the River. It's kind of this violety, kind of purpley blue color, and it's super duper soft. It is handspun that I spun a long time ago, like 10 years ago. It is Cormo, Angora, and silk. I think it's 60 Angora, and then the rest is Cormo and silk. They came as little bats. I bought them a long time ago at Michigan Fiber Fest. And I looked up, because I didn't know quite how long ago it was. I looked up on my old blog, and they were from Jean Womack, and it's something Meadow Angora. They were from Indiana. I don't know if they're still, in business or whatever, but they were these little bats, and they were, a ton of Angora in them. So they're super soft. I have this just in a little project bag, and I noticed just from having it in there, it's the Angora is sort of blooming. So, but I thought that would be like really, the right color and the right, like, it'll be nice. I thought she can wear it around her shoulders, or she can like wrap it around her neck, like in the winter, and if she's allergic to Angoras, I don't think she is. I know she's not allergic to wool, but, she can just pass it on to somebody. So anyway, this is where I am on mine. I have 13 little violets across, and I need to get to 18 across. So before I start the rest of it. So this is like how the construction method, you do the first little triangle, and then you pick up along the outside and do that kind of the river down, and then you come up across the top and do the honeybees at the very top. But in this one, I am doing something which I didn't know how to do back when I knit this shawl. I knit that maybe 10 years or so ago. Oh, and I was going to tell you, so I spun this about 10 years ago, maybe 9, and it was, wonderfully soft to spin, but it was not my happiest spinning experience. It's a lace weight yarn. It came out to 440 yards, and I don't know if it's 3 ounces or exactly, or it was 2 ounces. I think maybe it was 2 ounces. I don't know. But when I got done with it, because there were like a lot of little neps and pills I had to pick out while I was spinning, from the Cormo and the Angora, and they were little carded bats. So it was kind of a, now I got Angora in my nose. It was kind of a pain to spin, and I remember actually saying, I'm going to put it away until I'm not mad at it anymore, and then I'll knit it. So I guess it took 9 or 10 years for me to not be mad at it anymore and want to knit with it. So anyway, what I'm doing different is kind of at the base of the violet, this kind of bottom little petal, is I'm doing a centered eyelet, which I didn't know how to do when I did this shawl. I don't know if you can see, this has like a yarn over and then a knit 2 together, so the eyelet is not centered, it's like between two stitches. I'm going to try to do a little video just showing how I do that, and so if I manage to make that, I'm going to slide it in right here. Hi, this is going to be a little video about how I do the centered eyelet. This is my Violets by the River shawl that I knit years ago when I didn't know how to do the centered eyelet. And so you can see here I've got just the eyelet and the knit 2 together. So both sides of the eyelet look a little bit different. And now I'm doing a new Violets by the River, and see if I can show you really when that shows up. You can see this has not been blocked out, of course, but here's my eyelet, and both sides of it look the same. So it is centered in between those 2 stitches. So how I work this is, and I learned this from a pattern in the book A Gathering of Lace, and the design that showed it was by Amy Dachin. Amy, you might know, she is part of Knit Circus Yarns, and she has the part of Knit Circus podcast, and I know she has a YouTube channel, but I'm not sure if she ever showed this on her YouTube channel, but I like to do it. It's just like a little, it makes it just a little more perfect. So you work over to where you're going to want your eyelet, and I'm going to slip the next stitch as if to knit, and then I'm going to knit the next stitch but not drop it off my needle. I'll just kind of swivel my left needle around and past my slip stitch over there, and I'll do a yarn over, and then I'll knit these 2 together. So I'm coming out with the same amount of stitches that I started. I'm doing 2 decreases, but then I'm doing the yarn over. So you work over to where you want your next one, and I'm going to slip, knit this next stitch but not drop it off, so that stitch actually gets worked twice, the yarn over, and knit 2 together. So I'll do one more. And this is kind of the first half of the stitch. So slip, knit. So I think the original pattern I saw this on was a garter stitch lace, so you were knitting kind of every row. This is a stockinette base lace, and it works the same for me, so I'm going to purl back, and when I come to here's where my eyelet is, if I just purl this stitch, I'll do two just so I can show you. If I just purl that stitch, I get this funny like bar thing going across, which isn't what we want at all. So I'll just take those two out. So instead of purling that stitch, I'm going to purl in the row below, or actually I'm going to like purl right into that eyelet. And I'll do another one. So you do have to keep watch on this row that you're not going to purl row into that stitch. I'm going to purl into the eyelet. Okay, so here is where my eyelet is, and it's centered on both sides. It has that little, so it's the same on both sides. So that's all there is. So that is about all that I have for you. I don't have anything off the needles, or I didn't really do a lot of spinning. The only thing I have been doing a lot of, besides knitting, is I have been tackling the stash. So last year when I was doing all the KonMari, and I'm still KonMariing some things, this is when I found out that I cannot do her method strictly like by the book. You know, she tells you to put everything together like in one room in a big pile, and then you go through it that way. And I cannot do that. I can do sort of one little, you know, if it's in the kitchen, like one little like cupboard or something, and do it that way. But otherwise, if it's all together, it's completely too overwhelming for me. So last year, I put all the yarn and fiber together, and I've hardly been able to go in the room since. It's been kind of, they're all been hanging out together in complete mess and disarray, and I got, you know, that room I just avoided. I didn't want to pass by it. It was at the end of the house. So I decided I need to get things organized and get things back. And so I've been doing a lot of that, and kind of little bits at a time. And I have an old, it was like that I'm organizing the yarn, and kind of by color, and I'm just like, you know, putting all of that away. And the yarn, it is not, I love having the stash of yarn. It doesn't, you know, bother me. I don't feel guilty about it. I don't, you know, none of those kind of things. I think I've been pretty good in the last year or two about kind of when I buy new stuff. I will never say I'm going on a yarn diet or anything like that. You know, but when I've been trying, when I buy something new, I try to use it within a short space of time. And I like having the stash. It's nice to be able to walk in. I, you know, could just kind of go in when I wanted to like start a shawl at 10 o'clock at night. I could walk in and just like find just the right yarn. I didn't need to, you know, get to go to a yarn shop at some point, or order something offline and wait for it, you know, online, and wait for it to, you know, arrive. I could just start it right away. So the yarn stash doesn't bother me. The fiber stash, on the other hand, so I'm going through bins of fiber and my bins of fleeces, and I have a lot of fleeces. They're all washed. Some have been processed that were sent out to a processor. Some are still, when I wash the fleeces, I wash them by the lock, so they're all in their like little tulle netting that's sewn up so that they can be either combed or carded or flicked or whatever. And kind of going through, and I don't remember doing this, but evidently I did put, you know, a card with like what the fleece was, and most of them I know where they were from. So at least I have that, so I know if it's a gray fleece, I know which one it is. So that's nice that they were all, but I have like bins of, you know, hand painted fiber that I bought at festivals. I had like one bin that was almost full of like just little samples from workshops that I took. You know, you take a spinning workshop and they give, you know, you have to pay like, I don't know, $20 for a materials kind of fee, because then the, you know, teacher like hands out, you know, different fibers for you to spin on, and I had like all of those saved, thinking, well, I could do something with those. I don't have to, I don't, and the thing about it is I don't spin very much at all anymore. So, and I have this like huge shelf of hand spun that I want to knit with. So anyway, the fiber stash feels overwhelming to me. I have not gone through all of that, and I still have a lot of organizing to do with the yarn, but I feel like it's getting somewhere. At least I can breathe when I walk in that room. And so anyway, I've been doing that this week. And this next week, I have two like gardening things. I am going to start, I think, I'm going to the orientation, but for the Master Gardener program, a couple friends, you know, suggested you should do that. And so they're having the orientation is this week. So I'm going to go and, you know, see what it's all about, and, you know, hopefully do that. And then this week is the first of the next 2 weeks. For the garden club, we take care of the part of the grounds of the museum, and sign up for kind of a 2-week interval. And so this next couple weeks start, you know, those, you know, sort of my volunteer hours for that. So I'm not sure, I've never been, I'm going with a lady who's a longtime member who knows like what we have to do. So I'm glad. I know we have to water, so I'm hoping it rains so we don't have to water all the time. But that is about all from here. I thank you all for watching. Let me know what you're up to. End of summer. I'm savoring these last days. You will never, ever, ever hear me complain about it's too hot, because it's never too hot. I will complain about the cold, but I am really just savoring every little bit that I can, sitting and knitting out on the porch, because I love it. That is my happy place. And that's kind of, we had a little a spell of rain, and that's how I started getting, you know, organizing the yarn. I thought I couldn't knit out there. It was raining, so I oh, and I have been sewing a little bit. I have the lining, the skirt of my dress that I showed last week. I have the lining skirt attached. I kind of took time because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the skirt that was in the pattern, which is kind of a gathered skirt, or if I wanted to put the pleated one that I put on the other dresses. And I decided to do like something different. It was in the pattern, and the gathered skirt was way easier to do than the pleated skirt. So I have to cut it out of the other material and then put that on, and then just and then do the zipper. So I'm hoping to finish that this week. I did buy new material for a dress, but I'll talk about that another time. So thank you all for watching, and until I see you next week, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.